What do you think high school was like before smartphones? Can you even imagine a time when you couldn't text your friends during class or check your social media feeds in between lessons? For anyone who went to high school in America before smartphones took over, it was a whole different world. In today's video, we shall uncover the 8 things that made high school before smartphones such a unique experience. From how we communicated to how we entertained ourselves, the experience was worlds apart from today's tech-driven teen life. Let's dive in. 1. The locker culture hub. Before smartphones, your locker wasn't just a place to store your books. It was your personal space, your physical social profile. You could tell a lot about a person by the way they decorated their locker. Some students went all out, covering every inch with photos of friends, family, celebrities, magazine clippings, and even a mirror or two. Your locker became your identity. Passing periods were a flurry of activity, not just to get to your next class, but also to check out the latest locker updates. Want to show off your favorite band? Slap up a poster. Want to make a bold statement? Get a couple of magazine clippings that express your personality. If you were feeling especially creative, you could fold up a few pieces of paper with personal notes and stick them in a locker vent for your friends to discover later. This was our social media before it existed. There was a certain charm to locker culture, a physical, tangible connection to who you were, and it gave us an identity that wasn't filtered or curated by a screen. It was real life, up close and personal, at least until the bell rang and you had to get to class. 2. The payphone line. The payphone line. Remember those? If you missed the bus, your practice ended early, or something unexpected happened after school, your only way to contact home was the payphone. You'd walk down the hallway, scanning for the nearest one, hoping that it wasn't already occupied. The situation always felt a bit chaotic, especially with a lineup of other students waiting their turn. What was even more interesting was how you got creative with your phone calls. If you wanted to avoid spending a quarter, you'd dial home and call collect. When your parent answered, instead of stating your name, you'd say something like, "Mom, pick me up," to avoid paying for the call. It was a little trick, a small act of rebellion against a 25-cent charge. The absence of smartphones forced us to be more resourceful and made the moment when you finally got to call home feel more significant. It wasn't instant gratification. You had to plan your next move in advance and wait your turn. 3. Hand-folded notes. Before texting, students found their own ways to communicate in secret. Hand-folded notes became a highly creative and personal way to stay connected with friends during class. You'd write messages, fold them into intricate shapes, triangles, squares, or even little envelopes, and then slide them across the table, pass them in hallways, or drop them into locker vents. The best part? The excitement of passing a note, waiting for it to come back to you with a response. Sometimes, the notes would even take on a life of their own. If you were passing notes in class, you had to be stealthy, waiting for the teacher to turn their back before you quickly slid a note to your best friend. It was an art form, really. You had to fold the paper just right so the recipient could open it easily, or you'd end up with a crumpled, unreadable mess. The absence of instant messaging on our phones meant that these notes were the lifeblood of communication. They were personal, creative, and fun. Plus, there was a thrill in sneaking around, trying to avoid getting caught. 4. Physical burned books and yearbooks. There was a time when memories and gossip were shared in tangible forms. No Instagram stories or TikTok posts. If you wanted to remember your high school days, you had to buy a yearbook. And yes, it was a big deal. Yearbooks were where you want to find out who wrote what about you, or who you should sign your name next to. At the end of each school year, you'd gather with your friends, eagerly waiting for everyone to sign your book. There were often personal messages, some heartfelt, some goofy, and yes, some that might make you laugh years later. It was the closest thing to having a wall where people could write comments, but it was personal, private, and much more meaningful than a comment section online. Plus, in a time before social media, physical burn books were how we kept track of the drama. These books would be passed around, full of handwritten gossip, juicy details, and insider information. Whether it was a collection of funny quotes or a list of who was dating who, it was our version of an online feed, without the digital footprint. 5. The shared computer lab. Before we had laptops and smartphones, The computer lab was a special place. Once a week, entire classes would shuffle to the computer lab, eager to get their hands on the bulky desktop computers. Research wasn't done on your phone or in your pocket. It had to be done on a bulky monitor in a designated room, with a computer mouse that often stuck and keys that felt like they'd never work. Back then, the internet was a novelty, and we used programs like Encarta or the early days of Google to look up information. Writing papers required more than just clicking search and waiting for the results. You had to carefully research, write, and sometimes even print it out, making sure it wasn't lost to the world of the web. This was before Google Docs and cloud storage. Everything was saved to the computer hard drive, and you prayed your work didn't get erased in the middle of your session. It was a slower process than the instant access we now have, but there was something special about it. 6. Walkman and Discman isolation. If you wanted to listen to music, you had to carry a Walkman or Discman with you. These little gadgets were a source of isolation. On the bus, in between classes, or while waiting for practice to start, if you were lucky enough to have a pair of headphones and a working CD, you were set. Of course, the music wasn't flawless. Every time the bus hit a bump, the CD would skip, and you'd have to restart it, which often killed the vibe. Still, the Walkman and Discman were the only way to block out the world and enjoy your favorite songs, making them both a mode of escape and a social statement. You'd choose one CD or cassette, and that was your playlist for the day. Sometimes 12 songs, sometimes just one. You were limited, but it made listening to music feel special in a way streaming doesn't today. And when you finally mastered the art of carrying a case full of CDs or cassettes, you were truly ahead of the game. 7. Printed maps for new drivers. You might be surprised to know that before GPS apps on smartphones, drivers had to rely on printed maps to find their way. Teenagers with newly minted licenses would often struggle to navigate using MapQuest or the trusty Thomas Guide that sat in the glove box. It wasn't as simple as typing an address and being guided turn by turn. Nope, you had to physically trace the route on a printed map, hoping you wouldn't miss an exit or get lost along the way. It was part of the adventure, but also a reminder of how far technology has come in making travel easier. Even though it might seem archaic today, that old-fashioned way of navigating had its own charm. 8. Complete privacy. And finally, there was the concept of complete privacy. When you left school, you were truly disconnected. There was no way for your friends to track you or see what you were doing. If you wanted to know what your friends were up to, you had to make plans in person or pick up the phone. There was something refreshing about not being constantly updated about everyone's every move. No group texts, no Instagram stories, and no need to be on all the time. You could leave school and focus on your own life without worrying about the virtual pressure of constantly sharing everything. There you have it. 8 things that made high school in America completely different before the smartphone takeover. From the social intricacies of lockers and handwritten notes to the way we navigated the world with printed maps and payphones, it was a simpler time. Sure, we may have missed the instant access to information and the constant connectivity that smartphones provide, but there was something magical about the analog days. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.